Thank you for moving with me, Juan Isaac, on a journey through the Bible. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. In our previous episode, we handled the last theme in the first letter of St. Paul to Thessalonians, and that one called us to be joyful, prayerful, and being thankful all day time. Okay, we now cross to the second letter to Thessalonians. Kindly remember to like, share, and subscribe. Now, there are a number of themes that I've skipped here in this first letter, especially in this second letter, especially the return of Christ on the day of the Lord. When you compare this theme plus and that in the first letter, you realize that the only difference here is Paul's, the difference here is that Paul's correction in the second Thessalonians aims to reframe the community's expectation about the timing. Yeah. Now, he treats the parousia more as an imminent hope. That is in the first letter. Now, let me just maybe briefly just give us the key difference. The key difference is corrective versus consoling emphasis. In 2 Thessalonians, Paul corrects a mistaken belief and provides a consequence of eschatological signs to prevent panic and disorder. While in 1 Thessalonians, he uses the parousia as a near hopeful encouragement for ethical perseverance and comfort for grieving members. That is why I'm not really going to handle much about that. Then I also handled faithfulness amid persecution, and it's the second theme here, which I'm not also really going to handle. So today I'm beginning with the divine justice and retribution. That is where we start from. Okay, now the point here is Paul's point in this second letter is that God will enact final justice for his people. Those who persecute and afflict the faithful will receive retribution, while the suffering will be relieved and vindicated when Christ is revealed. Paul writes this to reassure a community under pressure that present injustice is not overlooked, but will be addressed in God's righteous timing. So their present endurance and faithfulness are meaningful rather than futile. And that is why he states this plainly as both promise and warning. Pay back with affliction to those who afflict you, and to give relief to you who are afflicted. When he comes to be glorified in his saints, we read this in 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 from verse 6 to 7. Theologically, Paul frames divine justice as restorative and eschatological. It restores the integrity of God's people and completes God's ordering of the world at the final revelation of Christ, while also condemning persistent unrepentant evil. Chapter 1 verse 9 to 10. This emphasis serves as a pastoral function, comforting victims, deterring persecutors, and calling the church to patient holiness, so that hope is not abstract but grounded in a moral reckoning enacted by God himself. Paul's language blends vindication for the righteous with ominous judgment for the wicked, showing that a divine action will both relieve suffering and purge ongoing injustice. What do you and myself draw or learn from this? Now, this teaching aligns with broader Christian doctrine that divine judgment is real, it is purposeful and mercifully ordered toward restoration. That is why the Catechism of the Catholic Church, for example, describes God's final judgment as addressing the moral order, calling us to all creatures to their proper end, and remaining tempered by God's mercy and the possibility of repentance. Yeah. Now, such a framework explains why Paul moves from proclamation to practical extortion, because belief in God's coming justice is meant to shape present behavior. Steadfastness in suffering, refusal to retaliate, to retaliate, and trust that ultimate righting of wrongs belongs to God alone. Very, very important. Thank you for moving with me. That brings us to the end of today's episode. Tomorrow we shall look at steadfastness and faithfulness. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Mukhwana Isaac with the journey through the Bible. We link up in our subsequent episodes. Be blessed.